But that's the reason why I'm somewhat reluctant to talk about these things, because it goes back to what Matt Christman said when he was on the show. That sort of the deeper root of this whole, elite, the way that it's framed, the things they do, the conspiracies that rise around them, is that there is no change. That these entities are so powerful, and their influence is so, ineffable, that there's not really any point in fighting back. And this on Friday, Jake and I, we decided we were going to watch InfoWars. And it was like the maddest shit like ever.
Oh
We thought we were literally like, what's Alex Jones up to these days? Just out of curiosity, decided we were gonna go watch InfoWars, and it was literally like a fucking acid trip, fever dream. Like it was, he was ranting and raving, and he was like fucking red, and then he interconnects like movie clips into his rants, and he had a clip from that movie, The Dark Crystal, with like, the puppets like having light beamed into their heads and like crazy. It's like, yeah, he was talking about Satanism while like puppets from the Dark Crystal were like fucking like screaming and like going crazy and shit. And there was like scenes from the Matrix interconnected in there, and it was absolutely wild. And I was like, this is what happens when you get kicked off of the mainstream platforms on the internet. Like everything just seems somewhat culty. But like, to my larger point, his whole ethos around this, he goes on about it, because he was talking when we watched it. We specifically went to watch the Alex Jones episode because of the fact that we knew he was going to be talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, and we wanted to hear what the fuck he was going to say about it, because we were like, ooh, what crazy shit's Alex Jones going to say or whatever. And like he said all the things. He talked about how he had exposed it. He talked about how he talked about Epstein 20 years before anyone thought it was relevant. And I was like, yes, Alex, spill the tea, spill the tea. And he was talking about the satanic pedophile rings of whatever. But then his conclusion to that was, buy my prepper gear and go and take your family into the woods. Basically, that's what I mean. It's this sort of nihilism of like, nothing can really change. The world is over now. Just buy my prepper gear and move your family into the woods, basically.
I mean, so I know Alex is always like hyper emotional, and that's kind of his whole thing, is he just takes everything to a fucking 11. But this was like a range of emotions like I have never fucking seen. And it was also like a blend of all the phases of Alex Jones as well, which was really strange.
Oh, wow.
Like how he was kind of like skinny libertarian Alex Jones to sort of like more kind of chubby full-on conspiracy Alex Jones to then full kind of full-formed fatness, chubby Republican Trump bootlicking Alex Jones.
Lost my kids, Alex Jones.
To now this sort of like even further final evolution, which is just like a combination of all of them together, but with like his absolute like evangelical like Texan fucking roots like coming to the surface with all of it
got all
mixed
these
in.
like
and it's just
sigils spinning behind him and shit.
So literally, he went.
Glowing.
So literally,
it's like messianic. It's almost messianic.
Literally, he went through a moment where he was just like, I called it all out 20 years ago. I told you about Jeffrey Epstein and the Clintons and all the pedophile sex rings.
Don't do the
I can't do it.
It was many years ago that I told you about all of these pedophiles. And let me go ahead and say this.
Literally.
There has never been a better time to buy
and he's like,
my prepper gear.
And he's literally like, you know what? I said it all along, and it's not. I don't know why you think it's so weird, man. I'm betting on humanity. Like, we're gonna fucking solve this. We took down Jeffrey Epstein. We took down Ghislaine Maxwell. Like, this is all happening. Like, we fucking did this. We fucking did this. And then like
totally ignoring power in every way.
Literally, and then he's literally ignoring everything. And then he's sort of like, all right, let's cut to a clip. I made a promo, a really important promo. I want you to see, which then just turns out to be a fucking ad for his fucking shit. And then like and then it comes back from his like 2-minute advert, and he's just sat in his chair like rocking backwards and forwards and just like shaking his head, looking really like dazed. And he's like, I don't know. I just You gotta get in line with God, okay? I'm telling you right now, get in line with God, okay? Because this is it, people. This is fucking it. And then like literally just goes off on like so almost like a preacher level fucking rant about how there's nothing you can do and you better get good with God, and how like he's already like got his family in a fucking shack in the woods and he's ready to fucking.
It's this weird mixture of hope and nihilism that he sells people that I find really interesting, because like Jake said, 1 minute he's saying we did it, we're humanity and we're here, we're red-blooded, we're gonna fight the elites,
And we're gonna go to space and we're gonna fucking do all this crazy
and all this
shit.
stuff. And then the next minute he's like, it's time to give up, guys, there's nothing you can do, you just gotta buy the
don't
proper
know.
gear.
I don't
It's
know,
like
guys.
emotional
Yeah.
abuse. He love bombs them, and then
He
he's
love
like, "You're
bombs
shit.
them.
You're
Yeah.
trash."
It's really weird though, because you can also tell that he's shook, that he's like super shook, because like he gets so existential, like more existential than I've ever seen him before. Like all of the stuff that's going on in the world is like really shaking him up, and it's made him more incoherent. And like Jake made this joke where he was like, why is his face so red? And he was like, actually my face would be red too if my ideology was that incoherent, and I had to like keep that fucking cognitive dissonance like stored in my head. Like that's the reason why his face is so fucking red.
Dude, there was just a moment when he was like talking about all of the Epstein stuff, and he was like bringing up all of like the high profile people that are associated with this kind of like sex ring. And he's literally brought up this picture. I don't know what it is about Hillary Clinton that just sets him off more than anything else.
He literally has PTSD because Hillary Clinton exists.
He has this picture of Hillary Clinton up, and he's just like, oh my God, look at him. Demons, every one of them. Look at her. The jack-o'-lantern demon. I can't
Did he start
stand
bringing up the
him.
flies?
He's just like, literally, oh my God, man.
My
And he
favorite
just-
thing is the flies. The flies that show up on Hillary Clinton's face. You can just smell sulfur when she walks into the room. The
But that's
flies
the
land
whole,
on
it's
her.
like coded, it's like coded occult language, because flies are associated with Beelzebub, and Beelzebub
Oh yeah,
basically.
he's outwardly said that before.
That's what he's saying,
Yeah.
is that Obama's Satan.
Yeah, he's saying basically. It means, and like that's the thing. That's the thing.
How
is
do
like
you guys even watch InfoWars? Because I
you go to okay.
Infowars.com.
Oh my God, go to Infowars.com. This motherfucker, Infowars.com. I'm not trying to plug him or anything, but he's like.
We're trying to get him on the show.
People would like kill us.
They
if that
would,
happened.
but although we'd probably laugh ourselves to death during
it
the
would be
process of the
amazing.
show.
It would
Oh my
literally
God.
be the best thing.
He's built an entire infrastructure around himself, and we actually went to check out the stats of how many people actually engage, and millions of people still watch Alex Jones.
Oh yeah,
Millions.
he makes a
And that-
shitload of fucking
yeah,
money.
and it
dude.
made the argument about deplatforming sort of obsolete, because I feel like the argument about deplatforming is all about getting them out of sight, out of mind, but it doesn't actually like take away the influence they have.
Exactly. That's the shit I've been yelling at people for like an entire fucking week on Twitter. You dumb assholes, just ask Capital to take the bad man out of my eyeballs. And it doesn't do anything with the bad men that have the money, because they have the money to keep reaching people.
For the entirety of his career, from the early days of the internet, of the late 90s, he has been building InfoWars as a platform, as a website, completely independently from any of the social commons of the internet. The one thing I do actually respect the man for is the fact that he did see that. He did have this kind of like, I need to build this on my own
Well,
mentality.
he didn't have the
and
institutional
he's-
power, so he
That's
built
what I'm saying.
the
He didn't have
institution.
institutional power, so he sort of built the institutional power that would support
Yeah,
him.
exactly.
Whereas it's someone like a Joe Rogan is heavily reliant on the institutional power of whatever platform he's on to exist. But then there are other far right figures who have institutional backing outside of the platforms that they're
Yes,
then able
and
to then
will
quickly
continue to have it
establish.
regardless.
Yeah, so it's nuanced in the sense that it's about having some form of institutional or financial thing that's built up outside that can support you if you get thrown off of the platforms. And the thing is, a lot of these so-called right-wing people that have been deplatformed have that, but then the liberal establishment has sort of handed carte blanche over to these capitalist platforms to police what they consider appropriate or
Yeah.
inappropriate for them. And when this inevitably starts to affect the left has absolutely no due recourse to fall
No,
back
we
on.
don't have Koch brothers. who can keep us going outside
We
of
don't
the
have Koch
platforms.
brothers. We don't have Koch brothers. We also don't have any Alex Jones, who spent the last 30 years shouting Infowars.com on every single platform and like building it up. Like I remember there was that BBC interview, that one where he like literally like went crazy and started screaming Infowars.com at the end of it. That was he's been building that brand for like 30 years now. And you know, when we allow these capitalist platforms to decide what's appropriate, what's not appropriate without due process, we've basically allowed them to police free speech without any form of due process. This stuff is inevitably going to start to affect the left, and in that sense we are going to be screwed because we don't have the institutional power to sort of keep ourselves afloat. But yeah, millions of people still tune into InfoWars, which, because I remember we were watching it and I was like, this is weird. Like, you know, like those weird cult websites, like the weird Heaven's Gate website from the 90s. It has that vibe. And I was like, is this what happens when you're not on the mainstream internet? Like, it doesn't
They
just
have not
immediately get called.
the design of that website
Yeah,
has not
changed.
kept up.
And then I basically asked Jake, because I was like, who the fuck still watches this? Like, is he really suffering now that he's been deplatformed? And we looked up the numbers, and it's been an increase. It's this whole year there's been an increase in people who are.
Oh, there's a
and I
huge
was like,
shock. What? The thing that I said about how platforming works?
Yeah,
That
and I was
everybody's
like-
trying to fucking murder me for?
Yeah, and me too for by proxy.
Yeah, and
which
you
is
for
really
just
fucking
existing.
annoying. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting to see how this whole other world exists, but because people on the left are like, I don't see it on my feed, so it's not a problem. And I'm like, you guys
Well,
are
if they take him off
crazy.
Twitter, that means he doesn't exist. Because Twitter's the center of the fucking universe.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not.